The specter of voter fraud, now front and center, mail-in voting. And the GOP is suing California over Newsom's vote-by-mail order. Let's read the story and take a look at what's going on and why the GOP is suing. But for those of you who are pro vote-by-mail, I want to just give you 2 quick points and ask you to listen to the rest of the segments. And you don't have to agree with me at all, but I at least want to share with you my perspective on mail-in voting. I do not believe that voter fraud on a wide scale is anything we need to be worried about. I think it happens sometimes, it's rare. And typically when you hear people complain about voter fraud, what we see from the left is an argument that, but it almost never happens. You're right. The issue that we're concerned about, I should say we as in I should say because I don't know what conservative, I think they're concerned about people stealing ballots and stuff. I'm concerned about corruption. That's it. I'm concerned about one guy at the post office who hates Joe Biden. Just hates the guy. The Tara Reid story. And he laughs all day at those Trump memes. Donald Trump's so funny. Yeah, I'm worried about this guy. And when a box of ballots comes in, he looks around and he sees it and he breaks it open or something. And then he sees it's from, or he sees on the outside, it's from a D plus 20 county. It's from New York's 14th. These ballots are probably all for Joe Biden. I can't stand that guy. He's not my guy. So you know what he does? He just slightly kicks it over under a desk. And that's it. That simple. Then somebody comes in and says, where are those ballot boxes going? It's like, they're right here. And they pick them all up and they carry them away. And he just took 10,000 votes away from Joe Biden by kicking a box. That's disconcerting. Now, these things can happen with in-person voting too, for sure. But the point I'm bringing up, is that with mail-in voting, you have all of these different areas. You have an expanded opportunity for the fraud. I get it. There's still a possibility for one person to do something, and it's tough. But the other point I want to bring up is I think we'd have to wait until after this election at the very least. If you don't like the way things are set up, if you want to change the rules, I personally find it unfair to try and change the rules literally just before an election is about to happen. I don't like that. It sounds like corruption to me, okay? The election is in 6 months. It's Joe Biden versus Trump. Everybody knew what the rules were. Let's not change them. So maybe we need a law stating that election rules cannot be changed within, during an election year. Maybe that's the way we should do it. Because think about the inverse. Right now, you'll be saying we want mail-in voting because of this coronavirus. And what happens if, and now the conservatives are concerned there's a potential to help Biden with this rule change. What would happen if something happened in election year 2024 and the Democrats are on track to win? So the Republicans are like, we're now going to change all the rules. You wouldn't like that either. I think the rules should be set. We all know what the rules we're playing by are, and that should be the way it works. Well, let's read the news and see why the GOP is suing California. The Republican Party is suing Gavin Newsom over his order to send every registered voter in the state a ballot by mail for the November elections. California's election system is already burdened with serious issues. The disastrous motor voter program arbitrarily changed voter registration for thousands, casting doubt on the integrity and accuracy of our voter rolls. California Republican Party Chairwoman Jessica Millen Patterson said in a statement on Sunday. The lawsuit filed in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of California alleges the directive deprives Californians of their constitutional right to vote by making fraudulent voting inevitable. Interesting. The lawsuit from the Republican Party and the California Republican Party follows a similar suit from former Rep. Darrell Issa and the conservative group Judicial Watch. In their complaint filed Friday, Judicial Watch, which filed the complaint on behalf of Issa, argued the government's move was an unlawful attempt to supersede and replace California election law. Newsom signed an order earlier this month directing county officials to send mail-in ballots to every voter in the state, pointing to public health risks associated with large public gatherings stemming from the coronavirus pandemic. One of the problems here that you need to consider, if you go to a polling location, even if you don't need an ID to do it, you tell them your name, they find you and say, here you are, go vote. But with mail-in ballots being sent out to people, that means people who don't live there anymore are going to get ballots. That means people who have long since passed are going to get ballots. And that means there is a potential for voter fraud. At the very least, it creates a hole in our security. So if you want to have mail-in voting because of the coronavirus, then perhaps there needs to be a compromise for security reasons. And that's seemingly will get you over the Republican concerns. Now, another good point that needs to be brought up here is that this is Governor Gavin Newsom signing an executive order. I think you would agree with me that someone in office changing the rules at the last minute or sending out mail-in ballots by executive order should not be tolerated. And yes, I can mention Georgia with Kemp and Stacey Abrams and the conflicts of interest that were there. Yeah. Now you see why you shouldn't allow it, right? I should say the same thing to Republicans. You reap what you sow. Elections and the right to vote are foundational to our democracy, he said in a statement. No Californian should be forced to risk their health in order to exercise their right to vote. Mail-in ballots aren't a perfect solution for every person. And I look forward to our public health experts and the Secretary of States and the legislators. Yeah, we get it. Okay, let me stop you right there. All right. We now know the lockdowns are ineffective. We now know, based on Andrew Cuomo's statement a month ago, May 6th, okay, so 19 days ago. We now know that majority of the infections are people who are in their homes, at least in New York. In which case, why is Newsom doing this? It's time to reopen. I mean, Fauci even said reopen. Why would you just sign something and do this? This is the problem I have. You're changing the rules at the last minute. We get it. You want to bolster voter turnout. That's what they think. Republicans are concerned about voter fraud. We have seen some voter fraud, or at least evidence of, in Paterson, New Jersey. And we have seen voter fraud in Philadelphia. A judge of elections pled guilty to election fraud, accepting bribes. Why change the rules at the last minute if this is the case, okay? But back to my corruption point, I do want to highlight this. When I mentioned a postal worker, I was trying to show you that at the bare minimum, it can be a random individual at the lowest level of the government, of a job, who just doesn't like somebody. And they change the rules. It could potentially benefit Trump. It could potentially hurt Trump, hurt or help Biden. But what about when a judge is given this power? What about when ballot boxes are being sent to a certain area? It's corruption we're concerned about. So I think securing our elections should be something high up on our priority list, right? Well, mail-in voting creates an extra opportunity for exploitation. If you want to have mail-in voting, I'm totally cool with it. I think it's actually a great idea. What you got to do first, though, sit down, discuss it, bipartisan effort, figure out where the security holes are. Otherwise, you will reap the same damage from it. The assumption from Democrats all too often that they can impose new rules and make changes and that it won't come back to haunt them it's staggering how often this happens. Oh, we're going to ban this speech. Oh no, our speech is being banned. What are you doing? Don't do this. They go on to say GOP officials have said it will leave the system open to widespread voter fraud. And President Trump has also frequently spoken out against the expansion of mail-in voting in recent days. If the argument is that if the argument is that there is not widespread voter fraud, then that's not what conservatives are arguing. They're not arguing that it exists or doesn't exist now. They're arguing you create the opportunity for it, right? In which case, after this, it might exist. I guess this is Donald Trump. The United States cannot have all mail-in ballots. It will be the greatest rigged election in history. Here's what they say. Trump tweeted without citing any evidence for his claims. What? Oh, I can't stand the media. The Hill, you're supposed to be better than this. It's an opinion. Please, fact check an opinion for me. Trump was giving his opinion on what will happen. Fact check it. Gee. People grab them from mailboxes, print thousands of forgeries, and force people to sign. Also forge names trying to use COVID for this scam. In Paterson, New Jersey, I covered this, all right? Several people said they were, according to the official vote count, it said they voted. They said they never got their mail-in ballots. They said one of their family members has been in Florida for weeks. How did they vote? They didn't vote for who they wanted to vote for. So yes, it does happen. You need evidence for it. I guess that's a little bit, right? But come on, stop fact-checking opinion. Facilitating the opportunity for all registered voters to vote by mail during the COVID-19 pandemic is not a partisan issue. It's a moral imperative that will protect voting rights and public health. Vote by mail has been used safely and effectively in red, blue, and purple states for years. This lawsuit is yet another part of Trump's political smear campaign against vote by mail. We will not let our democracy be a casualty of this pandemic, California Secretary of State Alex Padilla said in a statement Sunday. Listen, man, if that's what you think, then you should have put together an emergency voting plan. Our democratic institutions, in my opinion, supersede everything else. We can't function as a government. We can't protect our citizens. We can't save lives unless we know what we have to do and how we can do it and what's legal. That means the elections are paramount. That means our government is where the buck stops. If you wanted to have mail-in voting, you should have put together a plan before an election year. That's just me. So what does it mean? Okay, I'll tell you what. If you want to change the rules, we do it after the election. That way, Trump isn't compromised. I'm sorry, the election isn't compromised. Well, I shouldn't have said it that way. I don't care, whatever. The point is, pandemics happen. We know they happen, right? Pandemics happen, and we know they happen, and you could have prepared for this. If you're late to work, it's not the fault of the train. It's your fault for not considering the train might be coming. The election could be compromised for or against Trump, right? In which case, this might actually, the pandemic could benefit Trump or Biden. I don't know. You could argue that older people are less likely to come out. This could help Donald Trump, right? If there's no mail-in ballots, the most vulnerable people, older people who vote Republican, might not show up. So this could be a big benefit for Donald Trump. That's what I'm saying. Just wait until after the election. Play by the rules everyone agreed to. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up in a few minutes, and I'll see you all shortly.